I was born in the year 1830 to a large fortune, endowed besides with excellent parts, inclined by nature to industry, fond of the respect of the wise and good among my fellow men, and thus, as might have been supposed, with every guarantee of an honourable and distinguished future. And indeed, the worst of my faults was a certain impatient gaiety of disposition, such as I found it hard to reconcile with my imperious desire to carry my head high and wear a more than commonly grave countenance before the public. Hence it came about that I concealed my pleasures, and that when I reached years of reflection, I stood already committed to a profound duplicity of life. I thus drew steadily nearer to that truth by whose partial discovery I have been doomed to such a dreadful shipwreck, that man is not truly one, but truly two. I managed to compound a drug by which these powers should be dethroned from their supremacy, and a second form and countenance substituted, none the less natural to me because they were the expression and bore the stamp of lower elements in my soul. I hesitated long before I put this theory to the test of practice. I knew well that I risked death, for any drug that so potently controlled and shook the very fortress of identity might utterly blot out that immaterial tabernacle which I looked to it to change. But the temptation of a discovery so singular and profound at last overcame the suggestions of alarm. And late one accursed night I compounded the elements, watched them boil and smoke together in the glass, and when the ebullition had subsided, with a strong glow of courage, drank off the potion. There was something strange in my sensations, something indescribably new, and, from its very novelty, incredibly sweet. I felt younger, lighter, happier in body. I had been out for one of my adventures, had returned at a late hour, and woke the next day in bed with somewhat odd sensations. Yes, I had gone to bed Henry Jekyll. I had awakened Edward Hyde. How was this to be explained? That part of me which I had power of projecting had lately been much exercised and nourished. It had seemed to me of late as though the body of Edward Hyde had grown in stature, as though I were conscious of a more generous tide of blood. Between these two I now felt I had to choose. Yes, I preferred the elderly and discontented doctor, and bade a resolute farewell to the liberty that I had enjoyed in the disguise of Hyde. For 2 months I was true to my determination, but time began at last to obliterate the freshness of my alarm, and at last, in an hour of moral weakness, I once again compounded and swallowed the transforming draught. The next day came the news that the murder had been overlooked, that the guilt of Hyde was patent to the world, and that the victim was a man high in public estimation. It was not only a crime, it had been a tragic folly. It was a fine, clear January day, wet underfoot where the frost had melted, but cloudless overhead. I sat in the sun on a bench, the animal within me licking the chops of memory. The spiritual side a little drowsed, promising subsequent penitence, but not yet moved to begin. After all, I reflected, I was like my neighbours, and at the very moment of that vainglorious thought, a qualm came over me. I began to be aware of a change. I was once more Edward Hyde. This is my true hour of death, and what is to follow concerns another than myself. Here, then, as I lay down the pen and proceed to seal up my confession, I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end. Will Hyde die upon the scaffold, or will he find courage to release himself at the last moment?